basically a provincial capital a day, actually two provincial capitals in one day today. It's a kind of terrifying pace, really. Is it fair to assume that they could retake the whole country?
It's very hard to see who could stop them. I mean, the US clearly is not reversing its decision to pull out. That withdrawal is about 95% complete now, according to the US government. And of course, the US allies have pulled out of Afghanistan as well. So unless the Afghan army and air force can suddenly stop this domino effect, then obviously the other dominoes will fall. And that's, of course, the whole point about a domino effect. It's that once it's started, you can't really stop it. What we're seeing from the capture of the provincial capitals today is a very clear strategy by the Taliban. They've got this Western strategy and a northern strategy as well. Let's show you a map so you can see what I mean. So the earlier provincial capital today that was reported to have fallen, Farah, that's not far from the Iranian border. They've actually recently taken quite a few localities close to Iran, and they're using that as a kind of launch pad to push northeast towards central Afghanistan from those western parts near the Iranian border. And then the very latest news that we've had about the fall of Pul-e-Kumri north of Kabul, that shows you the northern strategy as well. The Taliban are trying to put pressure on Kabul by cutting off the roads and supplies into Kabul. For that, they're going to need to capture Mazar-e-Sharif, which I've also included on our map for that reason. So Mazar-e-Sharif is now a crucial battleground, but certainly they're pushing in from the Iranian sort of general direction to the center of Afghanistan, and from the north downwards towards Kabul as well.
It's really shocking after 20 years of US troop presence in order to, affect regime change that we see now with this imminent pullout, the Taliban coming right back into front and center of power. Now, tell us more about the statement by a US envoy, Armen, warning the Taliban that they won't be recognized internationally if they take power by force. Do they care? Do they really care about such statements? I guess not.
So this was a statement from US envoy Zalmay Khalilzad, who's clearly trying to scare the Taliban into negotiating with the Afghan government and to come up with some sort of deal. But this threat of them being pariahs, I mean, it's a pretty empty threat, really, if you consider that the Taliban were pariahs internationally when they controlled Afghanistan between 1996 and 2001. They didn't particularly mind being pariahs as long as they were able to do what they wanted to do inside the country.
Exactly.
And of course, they had sources of funding. They had cross-border links in Pakistan, for example. What's interesting, actually, at the moment, their strategies to capture border crossings in order to raise taxes on products that go across borders. That helps them with funding this offensive, and there's no reason why they wouldn't be able to hold on to those sources of funding once they control a lot more of the country. So I think this US scare tactic, it's pretty unlikely to work. The US is clearly not in control now. It's now all down to the Taliban's own calculus. Do they stop before Kabul if they decide at some point that it's going to be too complicated for them? Presumably they could consider that option, but only if they see a very realistic prospect of President Ghani of Afghanistan resigning, and therefore of the Taliban gaining a lot of influence in an interim government. That might stave off a full-on assault on Kabul, but at this point I don't see much else that could do that.
It's just extraordinary.